Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Oh, I kind of figured you started already. See, I never know.
No, I hadn't.
am thinking that we're talking, and we're not even talking.
We're not talking.
It's all fake talking.
Now we're talking.
And now we're talking.
Yeah, because I wanted to tell you. No, it wasn't. It was totally. It was good. It was good talk. That was a good talk.
Okay.
But now it's documented talky. I was watching the trailer for The Day. Have you? So you were saying you haven't seen the trailer for The Day, is what you're telling me about?
I have not.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like it's from what I gather from just the trailer.
No one of the Hobbits is in it.
One of the Hobbits. is in it. Auspicious beginnings, then, yes? This is... that's kind of how I felt for like the first 2 seasons of Lost.
Right, I know.
That's a good show. One of the Hobbits is in it.
Hobbits in a rock band.
Yeah, sweet. He's so tall. The day is it's like very much the theme and tone of a zombie film, horror film, without it looks like any zombies, just a lot of rage. Like just the end of the world where people they've just stripped away all pretense of the end of the world from disease and the end of the world from, whatever. And it's just people who decided, what, we should totally attack each other with axes. That's what it seems like this movie is about. So I look forward to that because I'm a big fan. And you know what this got me thinking about? So we started doing this show, Movies We Like, in November. Right?
Yes.
Which means we have yet to do an October.
Oh, so
I'm pretty
we got some Halloween stuff coming
I think
up.
we should do the whole month. We should pick like 2. Each of us gets 2. And to bring horror movies to bring that we do a whole month of horror. What do you think?
I think that'd be fun.
I think we should totally do that. I'm pretty excited.
I'll try to pick things that I think that you'd actually like.
I think it's
not just
You better not pick the Blair Witch Project. If you pick the Blair Witch Project, I quit the show.
We're saving the Blair Witch for our first person point of view show.
Is that what we're doing? Can Doom be in that one as well?
No.
Because that's got it. And then the Amazing Spider-Man, but only the trailer.
No.
Okay. So we should. Do you want to just kind of jump right in? I know. First of all, where people can find us? We've had a little bit of uptake on our brand new Facebook page for Movies We Like, facebook.com/movies we like. Thank you, those of you who are already posting over there. We sure appreciate your participation and catching us over there. You can also find us at rashpixel.tv. That's where all of the Rash Pixel shows are. And I'm still working on getting all the historical shows over there. But Movies We Like is all there, so check that out. And you can find me at Pete Wright on the Twitter and... pretty much everywhere else. But Facebook and Twitter are good. And how about you, sir?
You can find me at Soda Creek Film on Twitter and on Rash Pixel. You can find me there, and you can find me Facebook at Soda Creek Film as well. And
did we decide we're gonna start? We're gonna open up the blog and start posting more. Are you gonna start writing more film commentary?
Eventually, we're talking about doing that.
I think we should. I'm ready. I'm kind of ready to turn it on. I didn't
know the blog was actually up and running yet.
It's just invisible. Like it's up there. I just haven't turned it on because I'm kind of a talker. There's a lot of pressure when it comes.
I gotcha. Well, I think we're waiting for our blog to start with our interview, right?
Oh yeah, we've got that. We do. Okay, secret interview coming soon.
Yes, secret interview.
All right. Let's do this movie.
Let's just jump right in. So, something that I should say, a couple someones that we neglected to mention in our last episode that I feel we should mention.
Okay. All right. So
the first is Clive Owen, because any movie with Clive Owen automatically is just better.
He is also on that list for me.
Yes,
of the best friends
who you haven't met yet.
Right?
Or who
Doesn't he
met
seem
yet.
like the total like congenial guy? Like you just want to hang out with that guy. Yeah. I'm big onto Clive Owen. He played one of the assassins, the Professor, who ironically also drives a BMW in this movie.
And you didn't ever see him teaching. Well,
you saw him teaching
professor,
music. He was teaching music,
teaching a kid like how to play an instrument or something, right? Like playing the piano.
He could be a professor.
So I thought it was funny that his name was the Professor.
He could be a professor of music,
or a professor of murder.
He could. You're right. He could have been a professor of murder.
That's right.
Oh, hello, Professor.
I like that better.
Oh, it's right. That's Dr. Owen to you.
Do you think when you go through like spy school, you can get a doctorate? what's yours?
Murder.
Mine's in gadgetry. What's yours? Mine's in murder.
Murder. Cutlery. Wielding.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I
want to go to that spy school.
I have a master's degree in swashbuckling.
Swashbuckling. That was the old pirate spy school. I don't think anyone swashbuckles anymore. I could be wrong. Do you swashbuckle?
I have an emphasis in swagger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So Clive Owen.
Yeah. So the lovely Clive Owen. He's always a pleasure to have in any film. The other person who I feel we absolutely have to mention, because it's going to tie into tonight as well. But Nick Powell was the stunt coordinator on the Bourne Identity, and really did a bang up job with the stunt work in that film. It was, in fact, he won Fight Choreographer of the Year for the work on that film, and just great fight sequences in that film all through. And the last person that, or people that I feel that we should have mentioned, the writers, aside from Robert Ludlum, W. Blake Herron worked on the script with Tony Gilroy. And Tony Gilroy is definitely going to come into play in these next two because he pretty much wrote the Bourne Supremacy and the Bourne Ultimatum. So we definitely going to be wanting to talk about him.
All right.
So those are some people we neglected last time. Figured we should just make sure we shout out to them.
I'm glad you brought that, especially the stunt, because we did talk, I think, at length about the about just the fight choreography is really stunning. Particularly
fights, as cars. I mean, all of that.
Yeah,
was stunning.
As relates to chaos cinema, and I think that's one of those things in this movie that provides a notable difference between identity and supremacy. Would you not say?
Yes. I think that's jumping into the whole idea of chaos cinema and the idea of the shaky cam, or I mean, really kind of the visceral nature of Paul Greengrass's cinema style, and how he's really trying to, instead of have the camera back observing the action, even to an extent like it was in the Bourne Identity, where we're still observing the action, even though it's quick cutting and we're observing it. It's still much more of that classical cinema style, or maybe the why do I never remember the name of the other one, the amped up version of the classical style.
Oh, the intensified continuity.
Intensified continuity. Thank you. It's a little more of that, but it's still, you're observing. It's just a lot quicker. Paul Greengrass really likes the whole idea of jumping into the action and making the viewer feel like you're right in the middle of the fight scenes, or of the car chases, or of running through the streets, or whatever it happens to be, to really make you feel like you're in the action. And it's very much a, for some reason, it always strikes me as a documentary sensibility. Like, if somebody you're doing a documentary about all of a sudden starts running off, you, the cameraman, have to run after them. It's going to have that very shaky style, and so it feels that way to me. Did
you see Theory of Flight?
No.
With Sir Kenneth Branagh and my one-time girlfriend from Fight Club. What's her name?
Helena Bonham
Carter. Yeah, really love her. It's an interesting film. It was Paul Greengrass, obviously 1998, prior to, I don't know, I feel like prior to this stage of Greengrass's stylistic career. And it was not like this. It was not like this at all. It was very loving and sweet and a fascinating watch. And then Bloody Sunday comes along, his dramatization of the Bloody Sunday massacre in 1972. And everything changed. And from what I understand, it was Tony Gilroy who saw Bloody Sunday and said, Greengrass is the guy to replace Liman. And tell me if you've heard something different. What I understand is that at the end of Identity, Matt Damon and Doug Liman, and Matt Damon is on the record as saying, at the end of Identity, we didn't think we were going to do any more of these Bourne movies because nobody wanted to work with the studio again. Like, we were done. Nobody had a good experience doing this.
Well, I didn't hear him say that. I just heard that he said, we're not going to make another one of these movies. I don't think it's going to happen unless something comes along and we can actually make one that's actually better than what we've already done.
Right. And so then Gilroy sees Bloody Sunday and says, this is the guy. Liman's not doing it, even though I believe Liman got a producer credit on this, on the Supremacy.
Well, my theory was that was probably a contractual thing. If any sequels happen to be made, he gets a
billing
first right to, or be offered the director role or an executive producer role or something like that. I'm sure it's a contractual thing.
Well, the contrast between Theory of Flight, and Bloody Sunday and on is really stark, and I think Bourne Supremacy is kind of an interesting place in sort of characterizing that more intensified continuity style. Where it really pushes the boundaries of chaos cinema, as we're discussing it, because there are scenes in this movie where the increased intensity and the increased pacing of the fight scenes, some of the tech scenes, the gun scenes, the I'm taking out a clip, I'm putting in a clip, I'm disassembling a gun, I'm throwing a punch, whatever it is, you get totally lost. It's just, there is no, you just can't track the action. And the first view, it's sort of okay, but as soon as you start kind of pulling it apart and really trying to keep up with where the characters' hands are, you realize that it's just gone. It doesn't make sense. And I'm starting to get a little nauseous. Yeah.
It moves very quickly. And, there's an interesting article about, primarily about Bourne Ultimatum, so we'll probably talk about it more then, but an interesting article by David Bordwell on his website on cinemawell.net, where he talks about this shaky cam and how it really does make it hard to pay attention. But at the same time, he says, it is hard to understand, but at the same time, if you watch the fight scene and you actually look at all the shots, everything is still there. It's just, it's very quick, and you really just are given just a moment to kind of capture the thing that you need to see. You see the cord, you see the hands grab it, you see the hand grab a magazine, you see these things happen, and then your mind kind of pieces together what's going on, and I can see that, and I think to a large extent I don't have a problem with how it works. I understand the action. You're right. The geography of the scene is really what you do end up losing. And in fact, there's actually an interview with Steven Spielberg about it where he says, quick cutting is very effective in some movies like the Bourne pictures, but you sacrifice geography when you go for quick cutting, which is fine because audiences get a huge adrenaline rush from a cut every second and a half on the Bourne Ultimatum, and there's just enough geography for the audience never to be lost, especially in the last Bourne film, which and he just goes on to talk about that and then Indiana Jones. But it's
well, that's the point, right? I mean,
I think exactly. I think that is the point. Yes, you're sacrificing geography, but you're getting this huge rush. You're in the middle of it, and even if you don't grasp every shot, you're still understanding, the nature of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point. And when I look at Paul Greengrass, the general tone of his work, this movie feels like a healthy bit of experimentation with quick cutting that leads to I don't know. I mean, if you are a fan of the stylistic choice, it leads to more expertise toward Ultimatum, and you can sort of see the intensity of the Bourne movies leading from Identity, which is more of a traditionalist espionage thriller stylistically, to Ultimatum, which is very much the sort of the, I don't know,
ultimate.
Oh, I was toying with postmodern action style, but the chaos action style, and I think that's very telling. And I say I don't mean to diminish it by saying oh my gosh, I get sick in the fight scenes. That it is. I think you said it. If you work too hard to diagnose the geography of a particular scene, you're going to lose it, because I feel like you got to really be able to slow it down to actually follow it, but you shouldn't really need to.
Right.
And there is enough kind of the pace of the sort of metered pace between the action that I think you still get it. I'm not sure. I don't really remember Ultimatum as well as I probably should, as recent as it is. But I still feel in touch.
And definitely the shaky cam, the queasicam, the unsteady cam, whatever you want to call it, is amped up even more than it is in the Bourne Supremacy.
So we pick up in India in this movie. Our bedraggled hero is living with the love of his life, the awesome Marie, who just doesn't have enough of a part in this movie.
No, but it is really interesting. It's so tragic what happens, but it is really interesting how they built that relationship, which was really the heart of the first film, and they use that in the second film as the foundation for what's coming. And I think that's really strong. Actually, Paul Greengrass talked about how when Tony Gilroy first came up with the idea for this story, he really wanted it where it was about kind of absolution for crimes that he's done in his past, and which just a quick aside, like we said last time, this is completely, almost 100% unrelated to the actual Robert Ludlum book, The Bourne Supremacy. By
this movie we've gone
together anymore,
completely off the rails.
Yeah, it's just like now it's just Tony Gilroy's book.
Yeah, it is.
So this is Robert Ludlum TM. That's as much Robert Ludlum as is in it. But he had three pillars that were the foundation for the story that they felt were the key moments to really make this story tie together and make sense, that they kept in mind through the whole thing. And the first was the death of Marie at the beginning. And that's the thing that, pushes Jason Bourne back into this world, and he has to now figure out more about who he is. The second one happens midway through, and that's when he finally realizes what this memory that's plaguing him is and realizes the horror of it. And then the third pillar is at the end when he goes and absolves himself of his sins. And those three things, I think when you put those together, it takes, and I think this is why they chose to make the Bourne Supremacy, as everybody had said, we're not going to go and make this movie. We're not going to make a sequel to the Bourne Identity. The book didn't have the story that they wanted to tell until Tony Gilroy came up with these three pillars and knew how to do this story. That's what it is that triggered people to go, okay, yes, that is a story that we can make.
What's interesting about it, once you get past the death of Marie, which happens fairly early in the first 20 minutes, like that's the first pivot, as you said, and then the movie changes, and there is an interesting sort of political redemption story that if you were hungry for more Brian Cox, the thing that I think this movie does really well, and I'm of a mind, again, I look forward to confirming this next week, but I'm of a mind that this is my least favorite of the three. And yet what this movie does exceptionally well is pay off, it provide a punchline for the political story in the first book, like in a way that feels like it really was intentionally built this way. Like these three movies were constructed to fit well together by really weighting the story itself less on Jason Bourne and his search than on Joan Allen or Pamela Landy and her search for the truth. Like you really feel like the anchor, sort of dramatic anchor of this film, is weighted toward the agency and her discovery of Treadstone now, because Jason, as little as he knows, he already knows more than she does.
Well, he does and he doesn't. It's what's interesting, and I really like the structure of the film, how Pamela Landy is trying to figure out who killed these these people that were doing this trade about the Nesky files, and she's trying to figure out the answers to that, which lead her to Jason and subsequently to the truth. And he's trying to figure out who is, why are they trying to kill him? And that leads him to why is he being framed for these murders, and leads him to the truth. And it's really interesting how these two stories come together. And I actually like that quite a bit.
I do too. I think they, that they set Pamela Landy up. And I think as the audience, we get the feeling, we get the impression early on that it's Pamela Landy and Jason Bourne who are in a sort of partnership through the sort of dramatic story of the film, and they're both going to the same place, and you can feel that sort of inevitable plod toward that same destination, no matter what Ward Abbott throws up in his way, or the awesome Carl Urban.
Yeah, another person who needs to be in more good movies.
Mm-hmm. Man, I'm looking forward to that Judge Dredd, aren't you? Huh? So, anyhow, I think that's one of the bits that they did really, really well, is that the balance between the political side of the film, side of the story, and the discovery. And I think we needed that. Like we sort of needed the break where Jason Bourne is still desperate, but he's learned enough where we can take a little bit of a break in the trilogy and learn more about the agency and about what the agency is doing.
Yeah.
So
it's also really interesting, I think, seeing moments where Jason Bourne, I mean, this is, theoretically, I guess a couple years later, right?
Right.
He's kind of created this new life for himself in India, with Marie, and is, still struggling with who he is, but is in a place where he's kind of having a more peaceful life. He gets to Berlin after, the beginning scene in India. He gets to Berlin, and the first thing he does is he visits the other last Treadstone agent, Jarda, played by Martin, I don't know how you say his last name, Zokas, who also is in Lord of the Rings as Lady Galadriel's husband. He visits him, and it's a really interesting scene. It's a great fight scene, first of all. Although I'm always like, well, why are they fighting? Is Jarda actually in on this and wants him dead? Otherwise, it's just these Treadstone agents always are just trying to kill each other anytime.
Well, okay,
are in the same room with each other.
That's exactly it. Because at one point they actually say.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. At one point they actually say, so we're the only two left.
Right.
So why are we trying to kill each other? I don't. That was unresolved.
I'm just like, well, he came to. I mean, and then the guy says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were here to kill me."
Yeah.
But then
he tries to kill him.
So, but the thing about that fight is, after it's over, you see Jason Bourne in like a subway bathroom, kind of cleaning all the blood off his hands and cleaning himself up, and you see him looking at himself, and this is the first time he's killed in a long time. And you can see that struggle that Jason Bourne, the guy who is trying to enjoy his life and just get, himself figured out. It's a real struggle to get back into that life of the spy who kills people. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting. And you don't get that all the time in big summer action spy movies.
Well, and that goes back to what Matt Damon brings in particular, I think, to this character. Which is that subdued, subtle sensitivity that had he brought the more aggressive, I'm a big bad spy kind of sensibility, would have been totally lost. But what we win here with his portrayal, that sort of what we talked about last week, was that sort of everyman portrayal of this character is something that's really approachable, and you can imagine feeling the shock, that initial shock when something really horrific happens right in front of your face, mm-hmm. and in his case it's killing somebody, and for me it might be walking up the stairs.
And that also goes into what we talked about last week with Bourne versus James Bond,
right?
And Paul Greengrass actually talked about that a little bit, and how James Bond really is more of an embodiment of this insider sort of persona where he's really in it for the secrecy. He loves the secret agent life. He kills without remorse. He enjoys killing. It's kind of a game to him. He's a misogynist. You know, this guy who's all about the gadgets and just, you know, this whole thing where he's an insider and he gets everything, and it's a great life. Bourne is much more of this outsider who doesn't like authority. He doesn't like killing. He's not a misogynist. He's has doubt about the things he does. He is trying to figure out who he is, and all of that creates a totally different type of spy hero. And I think I don't know if it's you know a spy hero for today versus a spy hero for the Cold War era. I don't know what it is, but there's something about Jason Bourne that really resonates.
Well, I've been thinking about this since we last talked, because you had made the comparison to Die Another Day and how much you love that movie. And, I think Bourne, what we talked about last week was that Bourne was a sort of what we needed in that action hero at that time. And Bond was not. So we get that. So 2006, but 2004, Bourne Supremacy comes out, right? Mm-hmm. Now we have two Bourne movies that people, generally really like and can kind of find a parallel to in their own lives. And then 2006, we get Casino Royale with Daniel Craig, a whole new Bond for a whole new generation. How much do you think Matt Damon's Jason Bourne actually influenced the direction of Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace?
I think it influenced it quite a bit. I mean, I am very uninformed as far as the novels. I've never read Casino Royale. I really can't compare that at all. But the movie itself, aside from the obvious, shaky cam and the more modern stunt and action style of filmmaking.
Think about that opening scene of Casino Royale, the running, the parkour scene was shaky cam all the way.
Exactly. But aside from that, James Bond has become more of he's not as misogynistic. I mean, there's some of that, but there seems to be more respect for the female characters in the film, particularly in those two, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, because of that relationship that he ended up having with Vesper. And she became a much more important figure in his life, and he fell in love with her and wanted to, quit the business and run away. And I think they pulled a lot from what Doug Liman and Paul Greengrass and Frank Marshall and
Tony
Pat Crowley and the team had done with these movies in making a film that was more in touch with the humanity of the character. And even though they still play to those James Bond conventions, there's a lot more connection to him.
I have a theory that I've really been working on, kind of presenting over the last 35 seconds. And so it's obviously going to be really well thought out. What I find so interesting, one of the reasons I think that we connect so well with Jason Bourne is that we are involved in the education of Jason Bourne, right? That we're very much on the same level as he is, because he is going through this lesson of discovery and education of his own life, and we can relate to that, right? I mean,
yeah.
Do you agree? So look what they do with Daniel Craig. They take this Bond and they make it a prequel. For all intents and purposes, whether you make it a literal prequel or a sort of spiritual character prequel, they're taking Daniel Craig and putting him in James Bond before he was the James Bond that we know of, Die Another Day, before he had officially had his license to kill, while he was still learning how to be a spy, and he is stumbling through this world, and we, as such, are learning from him. And I think that is one of the pieces that makes this sort of character so amenable to us as an audience. When you look at the, I mean, this is as a storytelling device. You look at the characters that we absolutely fall in love with, from James Bond, Jason Bourne to Harry Potter. I mean, when you are put in a place of learning and evolving with these characters, it becomes someone that you can really build a connection with.
Definitely.
And I think they did that. I think that's, maybe an unintentional influence that these Bourne movies had on James Bond that we have today.
It could be. It could have. It could have been something that they really saw and really realized that they could use that sort of a reboot that had that learning curve in it, which does help you connect to the character quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So
talk about what's your impression of Brian Cox's character, Ward Abbott?
Well, I like it. It's something that I had to think about when I watched it again. I'm like, okay, so in the first film, he comes across as the good guy CIA agent who has to clean up the mess that the corrupt CIA agent has made with this whole Treadstone operation. Mm-hmm. Although then you start realizing, okay, he's not really the good guy CIA agent. He's the also corrupt CIA agent. And that's, so it basically works. It was a little convoluted and a little mysterious, but, I guess the long and the short of it is he and Conklin basically gave a bunch of CIA money to these Russians, Yuri, and to basically buy these privatized oil fields, right? Something obscure like that. And Nesky was standing in their way as a politician who was trying to do something good and do something for the people. So they had the Treadstone project secretly, because Nikki didn't know about this. They had this Jason Bourne assassinate Nesky. And, it's kind of the most convoluted element of the story, I think. It's just like, okay, I can see what you're trying to do. It's almost the MacGuffin. I almost just don't even need to know about all that because it's not really helping me move the story forward.
Are there any elements of that character that you do need to know about? Like, for example, do you need to have that convoluted setup in order to see him kill Danny?
Well,
is that an important element?
That's the thing that bugs me most about this film. I never really understand why Danny all of a sudden seems like he's kind of siding with Ward over Pamela Landy. There's nothing, because even when he goes down and shows Ward the evidence that he's discovered, which leads to his death by the hands of Ward, it doesn't. It's like there's nothing in that said, oh, well, I can see that you're the clear-headed one and Pamela's going off on a wild goose chase, so I wanted to tell you. There's nothing really that came through from Danny about any reason why he chose to tell Ward as opposed to Pamela, who seems to be more of his boss. So that whole thing just seems kind of like a forced way to just let us know, oh, Ward is actually a bad guy and he's in on this whole thing. I don't know. I found that the weakest part of this whole story.
Yeah, I think my challenge starts. Maybe it starts a little bit before that, which is I wasn't sure how to characterize the relationship between Ward and Pamela in terms of their kind of professional hierarchy. Yeah. Where in that first kind of board meeting, about a half hour into the film, we get all the agents in Pamela Landy's presentation, and their presumed boss says, "Oh, you two play nice on the playground. I want you all to go to Berlin."
Right.
and sends them both. Because the first movie was set up that Brian Cox was the boss. He was the guy going to, doing the congressional meetings. He was the guy. Mm-hmm. And now we're thrown into the story at a point at which we're just supposed to adjust to seeing that Ward Abbott is now not just a guy. He is, he's staff. He's staff in a very sort of compromised position. And now he's in this role of sort of protecting his own sort of
Which
skin.
I suppose could have come to pass because of his relationship in the Treadstone debacle, where maybe through his involvement there, even though he's the one who kind of got it cleaned up, maybe
saved his job, but barely,
or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm with you, and that's sort of the unfortunate part of the film, because I generally, Brian Cox is one of those guys I just like watching his face. I don't care how bad the scenes are, or how confusing or nonsensical the story may be. Watching Brian Cox and Joan Allen together, they're just always great moments. They're so good. They are just so talented, that they sort of pull that off.
Yeah.
Okay. Who else is of note for you in this film?
Well, Julia Stiles again returns as Nikki, which is great.
A little more confident.
She's got a little more meat to her role this time, which will lead into the next film. I think she's always great. I love seeing her as Nikki in this film.
Definitely got a cuter haircut.
Yeah, I think she does a wonderful job.
Much cuter haircut.
Yes, she does have a cute haircut in this one. And the strangest thing, I mentioned Walton Goggins appearing as one of the Treadstone office guys in the last film, which is kind of a strange bit part. There's really nothing to it. It's just a guy in the office. And in this film, Michelle Monaghan has a bit part in Pamela Landy's office, and I'm like, why are these people? I mean, they must really just want to be a part of a Bourne movie in order to get into doing something fun. I really was kind of confused, and I guess she hadn't done a lot of bigger films yet, but she'd been in some stuff. I guess Kiss Kiss Bang Bang came out the following year after this, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but still, I'm just like, I don't know. It just seems strange to see her in such a bit part.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, and then the big person that I was going to talk about, bringing him up in the beginning of the episode, but the stunt coordinator on this film, Dan Bradley, he came on board. He wasn't on the first movie, but he came on board with this one with Paul Greengrass, and he's continued through the rest of the Bourne series with Paul Greengrass on Bourne Ultimatum, and then Tony Gilroy on the upcoming Bourne Legacy. And he's just, a master stuntman who's really just does some amazing stuff. And, we didn't even say, but a lot of the stunts are performed by the actors themselves. And so they really help kind of train these guys like Matt Damon to actually do some of his own stunts. In fact, the scene when Jason Bourne is held up at the airport by in Naples by the security, and you've got the guy from the U.S. Embassy who comes over to kind of question him and in his detainment. Remember that scene?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And Jason kind of plays it cool, and then once Jason realizes that the CIA is on the phone with him, he decks the guy and downloads his phone and all that and escapes. Matt Damon. In that shot, Matt Damon actually swings his fist, and he actually decked the guy. The guy collapsed and actually was knocked out.
I did not know that.
I know. And the first thing the guy says when he gets up, he looks at Paul Greengrass and goes, "Oh, tell me you got that."
That's one of those stories you want to believe that's the cut they use.
Exactly.
Is that? Are we dispelling that? Is that a myth, or we're just going to say that's the one they use?
Yeah, I'm sure it was the one they used. It's one of those things where I doubt they had to go back and get another shot because it probably just looked so good.
That's too great.
Yeah,
that's really great. So the stunts were fantastic, and we should talk then about a little bit about what Richard Pearson and Christopher Rouse, who edited the film, what they what they bring to the film in terms of their kind of editing prowess. These guys, if you look at their their CV, they're all over just these kinds of films. Particularly Richard Pearson with Quantum of Solace, and of course Iron Man 2.
And Muppets from Space.
Well, okay. Scary Movie 2.
No, but seriously, yeah, these two guys really brought a lot to the table as far as the way that they styled the cutting of the film. Aside from the cinematography that Oliver Wood did, and the way that Paul Greengrass directed it with this very kind of shaky, handheld, in-your-face sort of style, Richard Pearson and Christopher Rouse really helped enhance that style and create this world that did have such fast cutting, but it all made sense, and it told a story in a way where we didn't have to have all the bits and pieces in between. We got just enough to be able to tell what everything was, and it was a very well edited film. I mean, in the world of the shaky cam style, I think they did a fantastic job.
Well, and that I think is the magic of the film in particular, which is this that the art happens in the middle. And it happens in not only in the sort of space between the shots, but it happens between the director and cinematographer on set and the editors who are taking this material which at throughout the last decade provides a great challenge to editors everywhere. How do we take shaky cam? How do we take the quick cutting, and how do we make it into a story that still makes sense and doesn't end up just being domino? And I think that's a real gift.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And on top of that, tying in, John Powell does the music for all three Bourne films, and really, came up with a great theme for Jason Bourne. Actually, a couple just really solid themes that have kind of wound their way through all three films and have really helped tie it all together in a very cohesive way. I think the music, there's definitely some tracks that are just very straightforward action tracks that are just meant to kind of get you from point A to point B, but they still have that energy and really move, especially when you tie it in with the way that the editing is and the cameras moving. And then the sound. I mean, the sound mixing on all of these really is just stellar. And I think that you also have to give props to the sound team.
Who was the sound team? Tell me who the sound team was. I don't have it right here. Where's the sound team? I haven't even looked at it. Now, who's the sound team?
The sound...
Oh, for crying out loud, who's the sound team? I've lost the sound team.
Where are they?
Well, there's a holy crap, look at the sound department. There's like 700 people.
I know it's a beefy sound department, but it looks like Scott Millen and Bob Beamer are the sound mixers on the film. So I guess they're the two that we'll give props to.
On behalf of those two gentlemen, thank you for your work on this movie. It's fantastic. This goes back to what we were looking at yesterday, what we were talking about yesterday on that the Matthias Stork video essay, where you get to look. If you haven't looked at that yet, go back and look at it. The link is in last week's show notes, where you get to hear, he separates Quantum of Solace car chase from the video with the sound. You get to hear the car chase, and I think that's the example of why this movie works, pushing the boundaries of the shaky cam. It works because of the sound.
Yeah. In fact, they were nominated for some sound awards for this film, and I think that they probably deserve not an Oscar, but they did get some sound awards from the ever important Cinema Audio Society.
Yes. Now, which is more important for a sound mixer than, say, the Audubon Society?
That's exactly.
That would be a context shock. Hey, good sound. We like trees.
As long as you have some bird sounds in, it's great.
Oh, that's good. So the we should talk just since we talked about Ebert last week when he says that the movie was unnecessary, but not unskilled.
Right.
That on Identity, Bourne Supremacy, he says this movie skillfully, so it is still skilled.
Okay, good.
Delivers a series of fights, stalkings, plottings, and chases, punctuated by a little brooding, which is true. I think that's true.
There's definitely brooding. Yes.
There is definitely brooding. Let's see. Thrillers don't exist in a plausible universe. They consist of preposterous situations survived by skill, courage, craft, and luck. That Matt Damon is able to bring some poignancy to Jason Bourne makes the process more interesting because we care more about the character. That the director Paul Greengrass treats the material with gravity and uses good actors in well-written supporting roles elevates the movie above its genre, but not quite out of it. That's another one of those things I don't understand. Like it seems like a really powerful closing line until you realize it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
or maybe it makes great sense and I don't.
The genre? I don't
exactly. It makes a lot of sense, but I don't care.
Yeah.
So I as the doyen of reviews, I think I think he's got a great point. I think he talks about what we talked about earlier, that there's gravity to the character and gravity to the film, and it makes the film more interesting to watch. This movie did pretty well, right?
It did. It domestically, it did about 176 million. Internationally, 112 million. So worldwide, about 288.5 million. So it definitely did well for itself with a production budget of 85 million and a prints and advertising budget of 45 million. So they definitely made some money on this film, and they're probably going to keep making money on these films.
So I feel like you were going to interrupt me when I said that this was my least favorite of the three. Was that true? What's your take on this? Maybe we should talk about this next week. But I think we should
talk about this next week
because I should definitely see Ultimatum again.
But at this point, see, I feel like the Bourne Identity may be my favorite, my least favorite of these two so far. Like I feel like I like the Bourne Supremacy, but I want to confirm that next week when I watch Bourne Ultimatum, because I really like the way that the second and third films tie together.
Yeah.
So
I think
just
if I
because
recall,
of that, I may like the third one best and the second than the first.
That's why I think this may be bold, but I think Ultimatum is my Jedi.
Well, let's wait until next week.
All right. What else do we have to say about this one? Are we? Do you have other notes?
Paul Greengrass had something extremely nice to say about Matt Damon, but also actors and acting in general. And I thought this was really interesting. Let me just. I didn't really write it down word for word, so it's not an exact quote, but it's close. Good films are generally good because of the group. On any film set at any given moment, there are problems to be solved, and generally, people on set see their own problems. A soundman will see the problems of the sound. Maybe there's an airplane. A cameraman will see his own problems. The designer will want to see the whole set. The electricians will be worrying about where to set the lights. The producer will be worried about what the director is doing. The director will be worried about the million things you worry about. And all the time, everybody is looking for their problems to be solved individually. But when you look at an actor, particularly the leading actor in a film, the thing I'm always very conscious of is the actor is the one person on a film set who can solve everybody's problems in one instant. By looking at just the right moment, he or she can open the shot up and make it work by making the light fall just the right way. By speaking at just the right level, can solve the soundman's problems. By opening the body, can open the setup. It's a very special responsibility, and Matt, as an actor, has the ability to do it time and time and time again. That's the mark of a great actor. That ability to solve problems instinctively. That ability to do what needs to be done with impeccable timing and a great sense of understatement and yet presence.
Oh, that's really nice. You want someone to say that about you.
Yeah, you definitely do. And I think it's a great thing to say about Matt Damon, but it's also really a very insightful thing to notice about what an actor is really bringing to the table, aside from just, a performance that you can believe in. But and I don't think people fully always catch this when they're watching a movie because you're watching a performance. And we talked about it a little bit actually in Fight Club,
right.
The way that in The Basement, how Brad Pitt knew just the right moment to turn so the light hit his face the way that it was supposed to. And aside from actually giving the performance, actors are always trying to hit their marks and trying to say something at the exact right moment. And there's so much more complicated stuff going on than just actually living as that character in that moment.
I'm really glad you brought that up. I think it may be something that maybe Chad had mentioned in the show we did a while ago too, which is this idea that it's not just about performance. There is technical craft that goes specifically into understanding the process of being an actor on a film. And not that it's more or less strenuous than anything else, but it requires a whole different sort of level of presence on set. And I think you're right. That is that's a great awareness of Greengrass to at least recognize that. He's probably somebody that actors really, really like to work with, as evidenced by not only Supremacy and Ultimatum, but you know what? Let's go ahead. We don't have another Bourne movie on deck, so Greengrass and Matt Damon, let's go do the Green Zone.
Right, exactly.
Let's do Bourne again. And so it seems like they have a solid rapport.
Yeah,
you can see
so.
that. I think you can see that on screen.
Yeah, it's interesting from here. As much as it seemed that Doug Liman and Matt Damon kind of had this buddy relationship. Let's do this, and let's not worry about the studio screwing us over sort of mentality on the first one. Doug Liman has gone on to direct a number of other action films in the Hollywood system, yet he has yet to work with Matt Damon again.
Yes.
So not that they have a bad relationship, but it's just interesting the connection that Matt Damon seems to have had now with Paul Greengrass. It seems to be a little stronger. It'll
be interesting. I got a little sidetracked. I started clicking around. And Paul Greengrass' next film is Captain Phillips, Chronicle of Captain Richard Phillips and his crew's encounter with Somali pirates with Tom Hanks.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Written by Billy Ray. Tom Hanks, Catherine Keener, and Max Martini. That looks like that's going to be a good film. Yeah, I'm excited about that one. Billy Ray wrote one of a movie that I have constant contentious conversations with myself in my head, which was Suspect Zero.
I don't think I saw that.
Really?
Suspect
no.
Zero.
This was Aaron Eckhart and Ben Kingsley. It was terrific, and not. all at once. Like, it's one of those movies that is a series of awesome moments punctuated or like strewn together with like just I was going for some sort of a fabric that is very light and loose. Linen, maybe a linen. Awesome and weighty moments strung together by linen. And I've derailed. But that was a great movie. The other one that he wrote that I actually quite liked was Shattered Glass. That's one that I teach pretty regularly, which was the story of Stephen Glass and his fabulism as a journalist, which was a great movie.
It was definitely better than Heart's War or Volcano.
Yeah. But then, Flight Plan, State of Play, Hunger Games.
I didn't like Flight Plan, but Breach I thought was a fantastic film.
Yeah. I liked State of Play. I liked State of Play a lot. And I know Hunger Games is one of your favorites.
I really liked State of Play, and then I walked out of the theater and I completely forgot everything that happened in the film. It was one of those movies.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was a good team and a good film. Bourne Supremacy. It's a good part 2, and I'm really fighting not even though we're doing this, leading up to the Bourne legacy. I'm really having a hard time breaking it out of the trilogy that exists in my head.
Well, it is a trilogy. I mean, we definitely have a Bourne trilogy. It's about Jason Bourne, right? It definitely feels like it has a beginning, middle, and end. The Bourne Legacy, it could turn into another trilogy. It could just be a one-off. It could turn into a whole series of like endless James Bond type of spin-offs of this Treadstone, Blackbriar type of government conspiratorial society. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to see where it's going to go. And I'm excited, but you're right. It definitely is going to be like a trilogy plus one is what we're really going to kind of be at once the Bourne Legacy comes out.
It will be, it'll be interesting to see if Jeremy Renner can make it stick.
It will be. I've talked to some people about him, and I like Jeremy Renner. He hasn't really had a lot of opportunity to prove himself as a leading man other than The Hurt Locker. And because I think most everything else he's done before and after has always been supporting.
Yeah, so, but again, The Hurt Locker was fantastic.
It was. And I think, like you said last week about Matt Damon, he brings that kind of vanilla blandness to the role, which it does kind of require for this kind of, anonymous spy sort of character. And I think that Jeremy Renner definitely brings that as well.
That'll be interesting to see. So next week we're doing the Bourne Ultimatum leading up to the Bourne Legacy, and we'll plan on another late night movie chat for that one.
You betcha. That'll be a fun one to chat about with everybody.
I'm very excited about that one.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Anything else we need to talk about? Any other housekeeping?
I don't think so. I think we kind of covered all of it. It was great seeing Chris Cooper pop up in this one again in his little uncredited role as Conklin.
Yes.
In some flashbacks, but I don't have anything else to say about the movie. I think solid effort here, and can't wait to talk about the next one.
All right, looking forward to it. I'll catch you next week.
All righty.
We wanted to take a moment to thank you for your continued support over the years. It's hard to believe that we have been having weekly, in-depth discussions about movies since 2011.
That's right, 12 years and counting. Producing this show is a labor of love for us, but it does require a lot of time and effort each week.
If you enjoy our podcast and would love to help keep it going, there are some easy ways you can show your support. One is by using our Originals page to shop for the original source material that movies we've discussed were based on.
That's right. In Season 1 alone, we covered 13 films adapted from books or plays, from Charlie Kaufman's adaptation to David Fincher adaptations like Fight Club.
In Season 2, we covered even more, like Powell and Pressburger's The Red Shoes and The African Queen from our series about legendary cinematographer Jack Cardiff.
We can't forget about the 4 Jason Bourne movies we talked about. Love those movies. Well, the original trilogy, at least.
For our Richard D. Zanuck series, we did Jaws, Rush, Big Fish, and more. And for our horror series, we talked about John Carpenter's The Thing, which was adapted from Who Goes There?
We did our first great car chase series with movies like Bullet, The French Connection, and Drive. And for the holidays, we did Preston Sturgis's Christmas in July.
We had a great John Huston series with adaptations like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
And for our baseball series, Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Have I told you lately how much I love that movie?
Yeah, I think you have. Plus, our Magician series and Heist film series had adaptations as well.
Tons of page-to-screen gems. Listeners can find the details and links to the original material at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play, or movie you buy through our links helps support the show, and it's no extra cost to you.
So dive in and get your next read today. thenextreel.com/originals has all the films adapted from other sources that not only we have covered, but all of the shows on the Next Reel family of podcasts. Check it out and get reading.
Support the show and build your reading list. It's a win-win. Head to thenextreel.com/originals.